The sea mist rolled over the broken arches of the old freehold dockyards in Tyrosh, a pearly veil that swallowed torchlight and muffled every hammer strike. Somewhere within that fog a black banner stirred. The red, three-headed dragon reversed, its claws wrought in dull silver thread, the silk so dark it drank the lamplight rather than reflected it. Few in the city recognized the sigil any longer, yet a hush followed in its wake. The wine sellers stopped their quarrel. The corsairs tying their lines pretended suddenly to busy themselves with knots. They felt the return of something outlawed by memory, but not by blood. Daemon Blackfyre watched them from the quarter-deck of the galley Maiden's Vengeance. Tall, spare, and black-haired, he might have passed for any Taroshi sellsword save for the sword at his hip. Dark Sister, thin as a spiteful whisper. The Valyrian steel caught the lantern glow in purple ripples as if alive, and in its reflection, Daemon saw only obligation. 420 men, his steward whispered. Another 20 tomorrow if the Rhaegar note's clear. Daemon nodded, but his eyes sought the eastern horizon where dawn was beginning to rust the sky. Across that sea, Whisper flew swifter than any raven. Daenerys Stormborn had left Meereen. The Khaleesi came west with 3 dragons, and every house that once bent the knee to the conqueror trembled. 400 men is a whisper compared to dragons, Daemon murmured. Sergacion Flowers, gray at the temples, though no older than 35, leaned his battered breastplate against the rail. Men die. Scales crack. And a beast cannot hold a crown, he said. You have something she lacks, my prince, a kingdom's memory. Even in silence it waits for its rightful lord. Rightful? Daemon closed his fist around Dark Sister's hilt. On Lys, he had studied dusty ledgers naming Daemon Blackfyre's brood. On Myr he had seen the grave of Bittersteel. They had all failed. Yet blood proved stubborn. 7 generations on, it still whispered in his ear, urging him west, calling him to the throne that Daenerys meant to claim. A gull screamed overhead. Daemon inhaled the salt and rot of the harbor, and felt the old urge surge. Westeros or nothing. Dragonstone. The towers of Dragonstone had not changed since Aegon's day, and yet Daenerys felt like an intruder every time Drogon's shadow passed over the courtyard. Stone dragons leered down from parapets, half-molten in places where Balerion's flame had once licked them smooth, and the sea crashed against the cliff as though applauding some ancient brutality. Tyrion stood beside her atop the wind-beaten rampart. Spies in Pentos speak of a Selsale prince rallying exiles under the Blackfyre banner, he said, voice barely louder than the wind. A trick of the Lysnes, perhaps, but the name alone will stir old wounds. Westeros remembers Blackfyre rebellions like a dog remembers kicks. Let them remember, Daenerys replied. Her silver-white braid snapped behind her helm. She had flown with the dragons that dawn, scouring the sky until the wind numbed thought. A dragon is not a dog. If this prince truly means to stand before me, I shall know the measure of his fire. Mercer. Yet some ember of curiosity glowed behind her violet eyes. Another branch of my blood, pruned long ago. The histories Barristan once read to her spoke of Daemon Blackfyre's charm, of brothers at swords' points, of fields red with roses and blood. If the Blackfyres live still, their claim was forged of the same Valyrian steel as hers. And who among the small folk would measure bastardy when faced with hunger? Across the narrow sea, the Stepstones. The Stepstones had forever been half-sunk bones of old Valyria, each isle a pirate's crown. Now on Bloodstone, black sails stretched like a murder of crows over half-finished ships. Camps sprawled between scorpion cliffs. Sellswords of the Golden Company who owed more to coin than creed. Summer islanders lured by spice and promise, and broken men from the Westerlands who spat when they named the Lannisters. In the largest pavilion, War Council gathered around a sand-strewn table. Dragons, repeated Captain Miles of the company, scarred cheeks twitching. Kill one, the rest become beasts of feather and bone? But you must kill one first. Damien's finger traced the coast of Blackwater Bay etched in spilling wine. A dragon is vulnerable in rest. Besieging King's Landing will draw her to us. When she comes, Valiste lay waiting along the mudflats. My ancestors failed because they met dragonfire in open field. I will not. A Lyseni admiral shrugged in purple silks. Mudflats. Better to bait her to the sea, prince. Salt corrodes scale. Garcian Flowers laughed. And do you mean to row beneath Drogon and scrub him with lye? The tent warmed with crude jokes, but Damien felt the laughter slide past him. In his mind he heard the brutal roar of dragons above the redgrass field where Blackfyre dreams burned to ash. Never an open field. He lifted Dark Sister from its scabbard. The candles hissed as the blades split their glow. My house was forged in rebellion. Let rebellion be our whetstone. Outside, the war drums of pirates rolled like distant thunder. King's Landing. Queen Cersei's crown still caught candlelight in the throne room. Yet rumor said she seldom slept now, for fear of waking to the beat of dragon wings. In Flea Bottom, bread doubled in price. Mothers sang lullabies of a silver queen come to burn the wicked. Amid that tremor of dread, however, whispers began to twist. Another dragon yet unborn, winged in black. A prince with Valyrian eyes, but Westerosi scars, promising swords for bread, vengeance for loyalty. Varys, pale and sweating, delivered the news to the Hand's Tower. A shadow reignites old loyalties, your grace, he told Jaime Lannister in the abandoned solar where Tywin's Syvas board still gathered dust. If the capital sees one Targaryen as conqueror, they may welcome another who claims the true Westerosi line. Jaime's golden hand glimmered in torchlight, but his green eyes narrowed. Blackfyre or Targaryen, they are both dragons. One head breathes fire, the other promises not to. Until it does. Yet even the Kingslayer felt it, the wind shifting, as if the city awaited not salvation but a choice of who would burn it. Ravenfall, a coterie of maesters. Far off in Old Town, Maester Samwell bent over a scroll so ancient the ink bled into nothing. Blackfyre lineage may persist. He read aloud to Gilly, words thick with fear and wonder. A branch taken east by Bittersteel, intermarried with Rogar of Lys. Children raised to forget their name until dragon wings shadow the world again. He looked up to the towering bookshelves drowning in twilight. If Daenerys is fire reborn, then House Blackfyre may be the shadow fire leaves behind. Somewhere beneath those vaults, the glass candles burned too bright. Damien. Night before the crossing. Rain thrummed on the deck boards as Damien stood alone, cloaked in a mantle dyed the black of mourning. In his palm lay a single silver coin stamped with Maegor's crown, blood money from a vault in Pentos, proof that even kings leave behind coin in carrion. "Father," he whispered, though he had never known the man. Only tales of a bastard prince who died drunk and nameless. "If blood is a debt, I shall collect." Lightning bared the horizon, Dragonstow's silhouette, jagged like a broken crown. Somewhere above those towers circled 3 dragons, their cries rippling across the storm. Damien closed his fist over the coin, and for an instant the thunder seemed to beat to the rhythm of a black dragon's wings. Dawn on Dragonstone. A pale sun climbed. Sea spray mirrored its light. Daenerys stood upon a basalt promontory with Tyrion, Grey Worm, and Missandei at her back. Below, the tide peeled away from the shore to reveal ranks of pale driftwood. Except driftwood did not bear spears. Banners unfurled, black, red, and silver. A single galley beached, and from its prow stepped a man in dark plate chased with runes. He removed his helm. Black hair whipped across a brow marked by a scar that followed the curve of a crescent moon. Around his neck hung a twist of black iron shaped into 3 heads. He bowed, not low, but with a swordsman's grace. "Damien of House Blackfyre," he said, voice carrying farther than the surf. "Rightful King of Westeros." Grey Worm's spear lowered. Drogon's shadow passed overhead, and the air grew furnace hot. Yet Damien did not flinch. Instead, he drew forth Dark Sister and drove the point into the wet sand at his feet, one hand on the pommel. "Queen Daenerys," he called, "I beg parley. Let steel sleep while tongues speak." Daenerys stepped to the cliff's edge, every inch the dragon's daughter. "Come then," she said, her words borne on the beat of Drogon's wings. "But know the price of treason is fire." Damien smiled, and in that cold curve of lip, Daenerys saw not a supplicant, but a rival flame newly kindled. The world held its breath, caught between two branches of the same burning tree. Inani and Nawu. The surf crashed in slow breaths against the narrow strand where black banners drooped in the mist. Daemon crossed the wet stones alone, leaving his captains behind the tide line with their spears grounded but ready. Drogon's shadow glided across the gray water and over him in soundless, weightless menace. The gale it carried rattled pennants and sent his cloak snapping like a sail torn loose. He did not lift his eyes. To stare too long at a dragon was to measure one's own heartbeat against an ancient drum and know how feeble it rang. Still, the prince's stride neither hastened nor slowed. The sand hissed beneath his sabatons, and each footfall printed a promise that the sea immediately tried to swallow. Daenerys awaited him where the beach rose into a terrace of warped basalt slabs. Old Valyrian stone half fused by dragon flame in forgotten wars. She wore no crown, only a leather jerkin dyed the smoke white of ash over blackened mail, but her presence was a coronet wrought of unconquered want. Behind her stood Tyrion Lannister, posture thoughtful, and Grey Worm, spear canted like the minute hand of a merciless clock. The Unsullied beyond them lined the approach in perfect stillness. Shields black, spears inclined but unshaking despite the wind. Daemon halted at sword length. Between them the whetstone gleamed, a blade already drawn by the gods to keep rival blood from mixing. He unbuckled Dark Sister and set the sheathed weapon across his palms, raising it for her inspection. "Valyrian steel forged for Visenya Targaryen," he said, voice pitched so it carried to the silent ranks above. "Lost to my line at the Redgrass Field, reclaimed in Tyrosh where rogues haggled over its worth in wine. It has crossed the sea to meet its queen." Besem Sone. Daenerys studied the sword, eyes narrowing to violet slits. "A blade may choose its wielder through circumstance, not birth," she answered. "Why place it in my sight and not my hand?" "To weigh truth," he replied. "If you judge me oathbreaker, take it as forfeit. Should you hear me first, let it rest here, unclaimed until word is done. We both descend from Aegon's sister's blood. I will not draw a kin blade on kin without first tasting reason." She considered, then inclined her head. He knelt, setting Dark Sister reverently upon the basalt between them. Hilt toward no one, as neutral as a banner bound in twine. When he rose, Tyrion stepped forward. "Parley begins," the dwarf proclaimed. "Speak plainly. A dragon's patience is shorter than a lion's temper. Believe me, I have known both." Damien's gaze drifted to the sky where Rhaegal and Viserion circled, smaller shapes riding the upper wind. Drogon perched upon a spire behind Daenerys, wings half furled, the red membranes lantern bright against the overcast. The earth smelled of sulfur and seaweed. The air tasted like the hinge of a furnace door. "I come," Daemon said, "to claim what was promised when the Conqueror forged 7 into 1. A Blackfyre is a Targaryen, yet bastard named by Baelor's decree after his mother. Daena the Defiant was caged for loving outside sainted shackles. Daemon I took the Black Dragon banner and proved with fire and steel that legitimacy is not sown by septons' tongues, but by blood willing to bleed. His cause failed, yet cause alone does not die. Only flesh. 7 generations my kin have waited. I am last of the line, and I will not pass in exile while a silver queen takes the iron chair for herself." Besser Mahar. A skirl of wind whipped his cloak. Daenerys lifted her chin. 7 generations, she echoed. "Did you learn nothing from their graves? The Black Dragon rebelled against a lawful king. His sons followed. House Blackfyre spent itself in Westerosi soil until only bones answered its banners. You speak of cause. What cause but pride?" Damien's jaw tightened. Rain began to spit, tiny cold needles drifting sideways. Below the terrace, his men shifted uneasily yet held formation. "Pride is smoke," he said. "I speak of promise. The realm groans beneath lions, sparrows, and walk-in kings. You offer dragons to break those chains. Good, yet dragons alone do not know the soil they scorch. I was raised among the small streets of Tyrosh, a nameless boy inside a merchant's counting house where Licini masters beat children who misreckon columns. I bled where the tall folk do not look. Tyrion's brows climbed. A romantic sellsword prince, he muttered. How novel. Daemon ignored the jape. Ride your dragons west, he urged Daenerys. I will march behind you at Storm's End and at the Trident. When Cersei's head rolls, I will ask the lords to meet in council to name a king who has bled with them, but not over them. I will stake my claim before their eyes and yours. Let the realm choose its dragon. Peaceful competition, Tyrion mused. Rather unlike bitter steel and wildfire. Grey Worm shifted a half step as if to interpose, but Daenerys held up a gloved hand. She looked past Daemon to the fog-shrouded galleys, to the black banners that once terrified half the continent, and she measured what her dream required. Fire to melt chains, but also a people willing to step into that burning. What of oaths to me, she asked. Swear me queen, and perhaps I grant lands and titles enough to drown your bitterness. Damien's eyes flicked down to Dark Sister nestled in rain-dark stone. A sword gifted can be taken. A crown won, never. I will kneel only when all voices have spoken. Let the harvest decide whose hand wields the scythe. Oh! The dragon behind her hissed, smoke rolling from his nostrils. Tyrion's palm hovered near her elbow, either to steady or restrain her. You would risk war between dragons, Daenerys said, voice as level as a drawn string. Cities burn from less. I would risk nothing, Daemon countered. That is not already doomed. Lannister tyranny, Tyrell plots, northern vengeance. These forces march regardless. 2 dragons or 3 make little difference in blood spilt. But 2 dragons allied until victory gives the realm a choice after. Split banners now and we court ruin. Nascent daughter. He waited, throat pulsing. Behind him the susurrus of rain on spear points whispered like restless ghosts. Daenerys studied him the way a falcon studies a still mouse, weighing whether stillness hides strength or surrender. Finally she spoke. What proof of your name will the lords heed? Daemon reached beneath his cuirass and withdrew a twist of blackened silver. 3 dragon heads welded into a circlet eaten by time. The metal glimmered like faint starlight. The crown demon wore at Redgrass, he said. Rotted from the mud of the battlefield. Purchased in Volantis by a collector of curiosities. He died poor after mistaking me for a harmless thief. Grey Worm's mouth twitched. Tyrion coughed into his fist. Daenerys stepped closer, hand outstretched. He laid the cold thing in her palm. Drops of rain beaded across the gnawed metal like sweat on a dying king's brow. She closed her fist. Should I melt this fragment of treason myself? She wondered aloud. Or place it beside Aegon's steel crown upon the Iron Throne? Place it, Daemon answered, and let every eye decide which better fits the realm. A silence heavier than mortar sealed the moment. The rain thickened, thunder prowled beyond the clouds. At last Daenerys placed the relic inside her cloak. We sail at dawn for Dragonstone harbor, she declared. Your host camps beyond the gorge. You will march 1 league apart from my unsullied. Any Blackfyre man who flies a banner within 2 bowshots of my own before King's Landing burns will be taken as enemy and put to flame. Agreed. Agreed? Agreed, Daemon said. She nodded to Grey Worm, who barked orders sharp as whip cracks. Unsullied opened ranks for Daemon's departure. He retrieved Dark Sister, buckled it casually, and, after a pause, bowed with measured grace. May the realm be worthy of its queen, he said. Or its king, she answered, turning before him, cloak swirling like smoke in the wind. Drogon spread midnight wings. The gale of his takeoff shredded the rain into silver wires. Daemon descended the slope alone, eyes stinging from sulfur. Behind him, roar of wings receded. Ahead, his men straightened, seeing the parley had not ended in pyre. As he passed, Garcian flowers lifted an eyebrow. Well, the knight asked softly. We fight beside her, Daemon said. Then against her, if need be. First we take a kingdom. Later we decide whose. Thunder answered as if the gods laughed. War councils sprouted like mushrooms on rotting logs. On his flagship, Tyrion unfurled charcoal drafts of Blackwater Bay, marking scorpion nests and chain baskets left from Stannis' futile bid. Sir Davos, Rice Miles said, corrected his measurements from first-hand memory. Across the wood table, Damian placed pins of lacquered midnight glass. His patchwork host, Golden Company veterans lined up with Myrish crossbowmen. Rogar pikemen flanked Selsail archers. Summer spearmen ringed a cluster of Westerosi exiles from the Reach. Tyrion's eyebrow lifted further with every token. "You've scraped half Essos," he said. "But can they stand ground together?" "Not alone," Damian admitted. "With Unsullied on the flanks and Dothraki to break lines, they may hold the center. They know I will ride among them. My blood is the coin. And Daenerys will ride Drogon above," Tyrion murmured. "One strike of flame, and 1,000 men are ash. Yours as likely as mine. But ate Redgrass my forefathers' army broke when Aegon's sons dove from the sun," Damian said. "Their terror undid them more than fire. This host marches knowing we fight alongside dragons, not beneath them. They need only believe Drogon's blaze spares our banner. Fear will aim at Lannisters instead." He tapped a black pin shaped like a dragon's head onto the map at the King's Road's mouth. Davos exhaled through his teeth. "Your banner's 2 bowshots apart," the Onion Knight reminded. "Soldiers drift when swords clash. Mark your distance in blood." "Nay?" "Blood speaks clearer than horns," Damian said. And Davos found no argument. Weeks became measured by wakes of ships. The narrow sea heaved under 2 converging armadas. Targaryen sails red and black like dawn and eclipse. Blackfyre sails black and red like eclipse and tomb. Fishermen fled at first sight. Pirate dens on the stepstones lit fires on their hills, signaling safe harbors to sell secrets. But no whispers could outpace the dragons. Every sunrise, Drogon soared fiery across masts and rigging, casting crews in rust-eyed awe. Every sunset, Damian held councils on the quarterdeck where gulls wheeled overhead and spattered guano on war plans. In cramped cabins, ravens bore scrolls to Storm's End, Sunspear, and White Harbor. Letters from both claimants seeking swords. Lords weighed ancient grudges. Dornish princes remembered the Redgrass slaughter of their companions. Manderleys recalled Summerhall's fall. Even the Starks debated whether Wolf should side with Dragon at all. In the cold halls of Winterfell, Sansa Stark read 2 letters by candlefire. One penned in Valyrian by Daenerys, offering trade and pardons, and another by Damian offering the North autonomy under a reforged pact. The Lady of Winterfell folded both, lips pursed and cooled her fingers against the frost-winked glass before replying. South of the neck, the River Lords looked to Edmure Tully, newly freed yet landless under Lannister's glare. He counted the cost of flame on wheat fields and wrote cautious neutrality. The Vale's young Lord Robert trembled behind Maester's counsel and signed nothing. Old Oak in Highgarden stood paralyzed, Mace Tyrell's ghost yet warm beneath the roses, and Randall Tarley's memory sharpening every sword in the Reach. Silence spread like mold. Only Dorne answered swiftly. A black ship slid into the royal fleet off the Stormlands, banners of sun and spear replaced by a dark flag quartered. One silver spear in each forming a star around a dragon's eye. Arianne Martell herself boarded Daenerys' flagship, jewels flickering like stolen sunlight on sand. She bowed with desert grace and offered 2,000 spearmen for the cause of the Silver Queen. Across the fleet, Damian told his captains Dornish thrones pressed on dragons back once, and would again. In private, he broke open casks of sour red and toasted to living thorns. Thus alliances stewed as they neared the mouth of Blackwater Bay. On a clear morning, the fleet hove to south of Massey's Hook. Fireship hulks, relics from Stannis' siege, still jutted like black ribs north of the bay's mouth. Tyrion gazed through a spyglass and swallowed old ghosts. The chain was long gone, but Cersei had spiked the riverbank with new scorpions, their arms cocked like crossbows of the gods. Dragonstone Castle, now deserted save for skeleton garrisons, watched their passage. Daenerys rode Drogon alone above. scouting currents of wind. Her white braids streamed behind like a comet. Below her ships, Blackfyre galleys kept respectful distance yet did not scatter. "All shore parties make ready," Davos announced across deck. "We land by dusk, strike camp by moonrise, move before dawn." Soldiers drew breath that smelled of tar and salt and fear. Night on the King's Road south of Rosby tasted of pine and impending thunder. Columns of Unsullied advanced in silent files, torches hooded. Beside them, Blackfyre infantry trudged, boots squelching in mud, banners furled in oilcloth to hide their blackness from the stars. Horses snorted steam. Dothraki outriders flanked the vanguard like wolves darting through trees. Further up the column, Daenerys rode a dapple gray, war spear across her saddle despite Tyrion's protest that queens did not wield footmen's weapons. Drogon patrolled above as a stalking shadow. Small folk peering from shutter cracks prayed it was the stranger passing by. 2 bow shots east, Damien's host mirrored the march. Signal torches blinked across the gap like wary eyes. Garcion rode at his prince's left, squinting through drizzle. "I see movement beyond the pines," he muttered. "Bannerless watchers. Could be Lannister scouts. Could be hungry peasants. Both bleed," Damien said. He signaled a clutch of summer bowmen who vanished between tree trunks. Lightning blinked behind the cloud bank. Rain intensified, drumming on kettle hats. Somewhere ahead, a horn blared single, low, and sorrowful. Davos' voice echoed down the line. "Halt! Halt!" The column slowed, confusion rippling. Daenerys spurred forward, Drogon's roar splitting the dark. Fire flashed above treetops, orange wound in black sky, casting silhouettes of tumbling shapes. Damien jerked reins and kicked heels. His destrier lunged. Garcian cursed and followed. The prince burst into a clearing and rained hard. The ground boiled with shapes, Unsullied sprawled, twisted. Shields scattered. Their spears lay snapped beside charred stumps of bodies. In the center, 3 scorpions smoldered, their bow arms wrenched as if crushed by claws. A ring of trees burned, crowns of flame snapping in the storm wind. Drogon circled overhead, emitting deep snarls. Daenerys stood in the carnage, hair plastered to her face, chest heaving. Blood dapples mottled her jerkin though no wound showed. Grey Worm knelt beside a dying soldier whose eyes wept crimson. Tyrion staggered among the wreck, white as corpse fog. "What happened?" Damien demanded, leaping down. Daenerys' face flicked toward him in fury and grief. "Cersei's forward scouts," she spat. "They disguised scorpions in the timber. The bolts loosed at Drogon, so he turned their line to embers. But they aimed poison at men as well. My Unsullied took the worst," Greycap tips. Greycap, mushroomy core, that rotted tissue like wet bark. Damien's gut clenched. He knelt beside a fallen soldier, fingered the black ooze at a spear wound. The flesh bubbled. No treatment but mercy. Across the clearing, more shapes stirred. Blackfyre pikemen who had run to assist, struck by crossbow quarrels now lodged deep. Garcian cursed softly. "Your men came to help mine," Daenerys said, voice raw. "And yours lie dying for it." "Dragons care not which banner stands beneath," Damien answered. "Nor does Cersei's malice. She will paint us both rebels and butcher us alike." Tyrion staggered up, rain sluicing the soot from his face. "She means to break us before we reach the city, use the forest to bleed our numbers, then retreat behind walls, and call us savages. Every villager burned becomes our blame." Nandaraserid. Damien surveyed the wreck. 20 Unsullied dead, perhaps 10 of his own. Small by siege standards yet heavy in hearts untested side by side. He turned to Daenerys. "Tomorrow," he said, "we must march as one column. 2 bowshots apart invites ambush between. Our soldiers sleep and bleed together from now until the gates fall." She searched his face, finding neither guile nor surrender. Rain poured, hissing on embers. Drogon alighted at the clearing's edge. The ground shook. The great beast folded wings, regarding Damien with molten eyes. "Agreed," Daenerys said. "But your banners stay furled until King's Landing. I will not have small folk flee before the Black Dragon and leave no food for my hungry host." "Done," Damien said. He offered his gauntleted hand. After a heartbeat, she clasped it. Water streamed across steel and leather, down to the mingled blood mud at their feet. When dawn broke, the column moved again, a single slow serpent of spears, hooves, and supply wagons. Word of the ambush spread along the ranks, welding mistrust into grim resolve. Some Blackfyre sellswards traded flask for flask with Dothraki to steady nerves, each tasting the other's home through stolen spirits. Unsullied marched at the heart, shields still bright with their dead brother's polish. On a hillock, just east of the Roserad, Daemon and Daenerys convened atop a low stone wall once built by farmers to keep sheep from straying. Now it penned ambitions. Tyrion unfolded new maps. Cersei had ordered fields torched between King's Landing and Hayford, denying grain to the invaders. Refugees choked the road south. Jaime Lannister, watchers said, held command of the walls while Euron Greyjoys, black-hulled leviathans, prowled the Blackwater mouth like sharks. Euron will strike our fleet, Tyrion warned. He may have scorpions mounted on ship prows. Burn them quick, or he'll gut us. Burn them, Daenerys echoed, gaze distant. T2 on water. Fire on water, dancing shadows. Daemon felt the shift in her voice. Weariness threaded with hunger to end it all in one conflagration. He touched Dark Sister's pommel. Scorpions kill dragons. Dragons end wars, he said. We must choose where to spend that coin. I propose. Drogon sears Euron's fleet at twilight when their deck crews are half drunk. Meanwhile, Rhaegal and Viserion faint north, feasting on Cersei's field stockpiles to deny her defenders. No. Tyrion pinched his beard. You would use dragons as forged letters of marque. Burning letters seldom need reading, Daemon quipped. Daenerys, lip curve. Yet each flame stokes fear that may later crown you, not me. He met her eyes. Fear is faith's crueler twin. I court neither. Let deeds speak. The city will see Blackfyre banners only after victory. Memodesiah. Grey Worm unrolled a parchment. Sansa Stark's reply arrived by Raven. The Northern Lady pledged no swords, citing winter stores too precious, but promised no shields for Cersei either. Neutral, yet an open gate should a new ruler prove worthy. Northmen sit, counting grain, Daemon said. When the Iron Throne cracks, they will march to break whichever pieces threaten them. Then best we be the safer shard, Tyrion muttered. 3 nights later, the war found its voice. Off the Blackwater's mouth, Euron's silence led a crescent of ironborn raiders painted with krakens and teeth. Moonlight limned their wet planks silver. On Dragonstone's lee, Tyrion crouched atop the battlement, counting enemy sails. 8, 12, 17. Too many to flame one by one before they struck anchored troopships. But Drogon did not strike one by one. From the cloud's black belly he plunged, dorsal spikes aglow with furnace heart. Fire vomited forth in streaming orange-white arcs that lit the bay like dawn. Silence's masts exploded into burning spars. Her shriek of sundered oak drowned even iron-born warhorns. The sea boiled where dragonfire met wave, hurling plumes that steamed flesh from raider arms. Rhaegal and Viserion followed, spreading twin fans of emerald and pale gold. Ships turned to pyres, sailors leapt, spitting curses that ended as hisses beneath the foam. On the bluff above, Daemon watched, throat raw from shouting orders to his own crews to hold anchor. Ships bearing his banners were moored beside Targaryen transports. Flame kissed them, but passed over. In that hell light, black and red danced together, indistinguishable. By dawn, scorched hulls drifted like hollow ribs upon slack tide. Euron's corpse was not among them, though sailors swore Silence's prow went under with him laughing in its eye. Tyrion dispatched ravens, Blackwater clear. March upon the city. King's Landing woke to smoke on the horizon. Cersei stood upon the crenellation of Maegor's holdfast, hair unbound, eyes rimmed red from nights of sleepless war council. Qyburn at her side reported Euron's fleet sunk. She tasted ashes deeper than any fire. Ashes of alliance, ashes of children. Ring every bell, she ordered, voice cracking like rhyme. Let the city pray to whatever gods remain, and ready the caches beneath the guild halls. Qyburn's smile was thin as a scalpel. So many wildfires slumber in your grace. A single spark. Dragons breathe sparks, she said. I shall clothe the streets in green flame and watch their wings melt. Yet somewhere inside her, silence howled. The silence of a mother with no cradle left unburned. Beyond the mud gate, Daenerys surveyed the walls from Drogon's saddle. Scorpions bristled every tower. Red cloaks busied themselves winding winches. The black water coursed black and sullen beside her camp, where 50,000 men stirred. Beside her standard flew none other. Blackfyre banners remained furled within wagons, but Daemon rode at her flank nonetheless, sable cloak fastened by a ruby brooch shaped like a three-headed dragon. Tyrion and Davos stood before a semicircle of commanders. Jorah Mormont, Grey Worm, Garcian Flowers, and a Dothraki Khal whose braid brushed his horse's ribs. The dwarf stamped his cane upon packed dirt. "This is where we end lions," he said. "The wall is thick, the gate iron, the streets narrow," Davos added. "Easier to starve them, but Cersei holds every granary hostage with wildfire. Siege long and half this host starves first." Daemon traced a line on the dust with Dark Sister's tip. "Break a fang, and the beast cannot bite. We feint at the mud gate, draw scorpion bolts. Meanwhile, my cell's wards scale the river gate under cover of darkness. Open it for Unsullied to pour in. Dragons strafe the towers, but not the streets. Prevent wildfire traps." Tyrion's brow furrowed. "You gamble men for an untested ladder assault." "I gamble myself," Daemon said, meeting Daenerys' gaze. "I'd be first over, bearing no banner. If I fall, your honor remains. If I succeed, the city sees a Targaryen blade free them before Dragonflame does." Grey Worm inclined his head, respect grudging but real. Daenerys reached to grip Daemon's forearm. "We both ride hazard," she said. "I'll hold Drogon's fire unless scorpion strings target him. If wildfire burns, scales alone may shield those below." Their fingers tightened. A pact, sealed not by parchment but pulse. Night fell moonless. Fog from the river crept thick along the banks like lace of the stranger's veil. Soldiers muffled armor in rags black as forgetting. Daemon's ladder team slipped through reeds upriver, oars soundless. Atop each ladder tip flickered a wedge of pale resin. Coast fire gleamed from Myr, burning cold and invisible beyond arm's reach, to guide them without betraying glare. Inside the river gate tower, Lannister sentries lounged, bored and half-drunk. One dozed against a cradle scorpion while another scratched dice marks into a shield. Outside, a faint scraping drifted up, half heard and dismissed as waterfowl. Then a mailed hand seized the parapet. A silent helm crested. The night swallowed the guard's gasp. Dark Sister whispered, and dice clattered alone upon the stone, blood soaking their pips. Daemon motioned, and ladders hooked fast. Sel's words streamed over the parapet like rolling shadow. Within heartbeats, the tower belonged to the black dragon no one yet saw. At the winch house, daubed cloth soaked in oil ignited, gears groaned. The river gate yawned like a giant's toothless maw. Churu. Grey worms surged through with unsullied phalanx, shields locked. Their sandaled feet churned cobblestones toward Fishmonger's Square. Behind them pounded Dothraki, ululating warcries bounding from shuttered facades. Citizens awoke to chaos. Some cheered, many wailed. Bells began to toll. Alarm, surrender, dread. Up at the mud gate, Drogon swooped, drawing scorpion hail in blazing arcs. Bolts glanced from his scales. Two lodged but smoldered out quickly. Towers roasted in his wake, yet streets beneath remained unscathed. Heat blistering shutters but sparing flesh. Cersei watched from the Red Keep's tower, white-knuckled. Qyburn scuttled forth. "Shall I light the caches, your grace?" "Not yet," she hissed. "They still bleed outside the sept. When they breach the Hill of Rhaenys, we burn the slums and blame the dragons." Sir Gregor strode behind her, the mountain's massive shadow looming. She clenched her jaw, tasting metal of bitten lip. Daemon's assault hammered east along the Street of Sisters. Resistance stiffened. Gold cloaks rallied under Sir Jacelyn Bywater, crossbows crackling from upper windows. At a corner bakery, scorpion bolts fired point-blank through alley mouth, shredding unsullied shields. Garcion flowers led a wedge of reach exiles, smashing the scorpion crew beneath pavises and pikes. Smoke thickened, swirling with sparks. Somewhere ahead, shrieks announced Dothraki riders unleashing Aurochs inside the flea-bottom maze. Damien pushed onward, Dark Sister dripping. At the fishmonger's square fountain, he found Davos pinned behind overturned carts, rain of quarrels chipping stone. The Onion Knight grinned grimly. "Almost like old times, lad," he yelled. "Old times you lost fingers," Damien called back. "Still have a few." They advanced, shield to shield, until the last crossbowman fled into a tenement. Damien's sellsword set flame to the doorway, smoke curling to join the choking pall drowning the ward. On Aegon's high hill, Drogon perched upon the sept's worn dome. Defiant against the looming Red Keep, Daenerys scanned the city ablaze with pockets of battle. She glimpsed black-cloaked fighters amidst unsullied, indistinguishable, except by lack of spear discipline. Her lips pressed thin. Tyrion climbed the rubble to her stirrup. "You hold the beast by leash fine, your grace," he said, blotting sweat. "But wildfire caches linger. If Qyburn lights them, your restraint may be moot." She gazed at the keep's crimson towers. "Then we climb the hill and rip the match from his fingers." Drogon threw back his head, roared, a sound rolling across rooftops like a mountain splitting. Bells faltered mid-toll. In their lull, a boom shuddered, not roar, but concussive thunder of subterranean fire. Green tongues of dawn-bright flame erupted 2 streets north, engulfing a row of tanneries. The blast tossed men and stone alike skyward, a blooming wound of wildfire. Daenerys' pupils shrank. "Qyburn has begun," Tyrion croaked. Drogon unfurled wings. Daenerys leaned forward. "Fly," she commanded, and they shot into the boiling updraft. Beneath, emerald light licked along gutters, finding stored lamp oil, pissed-round hay, forgotten tavern casks. Fire leapt adipose to house. Screams billowed louder than bells. High above, Rhaegal and Viserion banked toward the new conflagration, riders urging them to douse with rubble and roar, yet wildfire burned hotter than dragonflame. Their efforts only birthed hurricanes of color that scalded scales raw. Daenerys felt each sting through Drogon's keen. In the river ward, Damien saw the sky turn sickly jade. Heat licked his face, nose filling with the copper of panic. He rammed through a barricade, calling to captains. "Form bucket lines from the river," he ordered. "Buckets?" A sellsword spat. "Against hellfire. Water dampens timber roofs. Cedar burns slower. Slow as enough to save trapped small folk," Damien snapped. "Move!" They formed chains, flinging sloshing barrels onto eaves. Unsullied joined, silent. Refugees stumbled from alleys, eyes wild. Soldiers lifted children over collapsed stalls. Smoke clawed lungs. Still, they worked. Grey Worm found him soaked, face smeared with soot. "Enemies retreat past the street of steel," the commander reported. "Red Keep gates closed. The lion den hides." "Good," Damien rasped. "Let them shiver behind stone while we save their people." The pulse of wildfire blast aftershock rattled windows, but bucket lines held, dampening spread. Rain, merciful at last, began to fall. Fat drops hissing on scorched slate. Above the keep, Drogon circled, searching for scorpion silhouettes. Cersei stood upon the rampart, gown whipped by updrafts. She held a leather-wrapped jar of wildfire, fuse smoldering. "Come closer!" she shrieked at the approaching shadow. "Come take what is mine." Qyburn tugged her sleeve. "Your grace, we must fall back." His words ended as Drogon's fire washed the battlement. The jar detonated. Green and red flames mingled screaming skyward. The mountain stepped before Cersei, fire coiling across charred plate yet not consuming. But the blast cracked stone under their feet. Towers groaned. Cersei stumbled, hair ablaze, wailing. Qyburn reached. A falling block struck him, smashing mind and body to broken pulp. The mountain caught his queen. carrying her like a doll toward an inner stair as rampart collapsed. Drogon alighted on the tower's edge. Daenerys peered through flame and storm. Below, red cloaks fled like blood leaking from a severed throat. "Open the gate!" she shouted to Rhaegal's rider circling below. "Spare those who yield. Break only those who stand." She tasted ash and tears between her teeth. Wildfire tears. Memory tears, tears of children she had heard scream on Slaver's Bay, and now again in King's Landing. Somewhere below, Damien's bucket line still labored. She swore silently that every drop they spilled in mercy would be repaid in justice carved upon the Iron Throne. Night, slow-birthed dawn. Fires guttered, rain steadied. The river gate remained open, the mud gate smashed by Drogon's final strike. Streets littered with scorched scorpions and broken shields ran slick with emerald puddles, now cooled to crusty glass. Small folk emerged, stunned survivors, clutching mewling babes and charred loots. Atop Baelor's steps, Damien planted a weather-stained standard. Plain black silk, unadorned. He would not unfurl the reversed three-headed dragon yet. Around him, unsullied, formed a cordon while healers tended wounded of any banner. Garcion flowers counted bodies, theirs, hers, Cersei's, and those belonging only to hunger. Rhaegal landed, rider dismounting with scrolls of surrender from half the gold cloaks. Viserion settled on the hill of Rhaenys, searing the last scorpion nest to slag. The sky smelled of rain-wet charcoal, and freedom perhaps still possible. Inside the Red Keep's blackened halls, Daenerys strode past toppled Myrish vases, following a faint trail of bloody footprints. Tyrion limped behind, sighing each time smoke seethed from cracked beams. They found Cersei in the throne room, sitting not upon iron, but upon rubble beneath the shattered window, where once a dragon's wing shadow fell centuries past. Sir Gregor knelt motionless beside her, armor fused, his helm gone revealing gray flesh runneled like molten wax. Cersei's gown smoked, hair half burned away, yet her eyes still blazed. "You mean to judge me," she croaked. "Dragons and bastards. House Blackfyre, bleeding leech. Take your justice. My children already paid the price." Daenerys' gaze flicked to Tyrion, whose face tightened with grief. She stepped forward, spear reversed. But Damien appeared beside her, sword unsheathed but low. "Let the realm judge her," he said softly. "A public trial unites broken people under law, not terror." Cersei laughed, a brittle shard. "You think peasants care for law? They crave bread and fear. Today you fed them both." Tyrion's knuckles whitened around the dagger he carried but never drew. Daenerys set her spear haft against the floor. "Bread we will bake," she answered. "Fear we will bury." She turned to Gregor Clegane. "Release your queen." The mountain's eyes, ember small, regarded her. Slowly he set Cersei down. She sagged, clutching broken ribs. Tyrion motioned to Grey Worm, who stepped forward with chains. Cersei spat blood on the stones. "You chain me, but the city will chain you both. Black or silver, a dragon is still death." Damien sheathed, dark sister. "Then perhaps the throne should belong to no dragon," he murmured, voice too soft for most to hear. Daenerys heard. She turned to him, rain-slick hair framing smoke-stained cheeks. Between them the Iron Throne lurked, blades blackened, twisted, but unbroken. "The realm will choose," she said. "As promised," he agreed. Around them, dawn burned gold through breaches in the hall, spilling onto tarnished steel, a light that washed crimson and obsidian together until difference faded. Yeah. The hush that settled over the blasted throne room did not last. Word of Cersei's capture poured from the Red Keep like smoke from a dying brazier, seeping into every crooked lane and marble hall until even the poorest beggar knew the lioness wore chains. Bells rang first in tentative relief, then in exultation, then in warning, because relief curdled swiftly into fear. Those bells told change, and King's Landing remembered too well how change often came on dragon wings. Outside the Red Keep, tents sprang up along the scorched hillside. Royal pavilions of black and red, troop marquees striped with the yellow of reach levies, the dyed indigo of the Rogar, the gold skull sigil of the Golden Company, though half its officers now bore new swear words, rather than their old oath. Lines of latrines and cook fires threaded the slopes, and the scents of wood smoke and onion stew mingled with the lingering tang of wildfire glass. On the first evening, soft rain slicked every battered helm, yet the eaters and murmurers barely noticed. They were too busy watching two dragons circle the twilight, tails flicking sparks behind them like dying meteors, while the largest crouched upon Aegon's high hill and beat his wings with the slow patience of an executioner sharpening a blade. Inside the keep, Tyrion commissioned teams of Dothraki and Unsullied to gather the dead for pyres. They worked with grim economy, stacking friend and foe alike while septons recited half-remembered prayers. The High Septon himself had died beneath the Sept's broken dome, crushed by a bell that tore free when Drogon took off. With no anointed of the faith to speak holy words, the city's folk made their own devotions. Candles left on doorsteps for kin who would never return, song scraps hummed by widows, children pressing orange peels to their noses to drown the stench of corpses turning in the gutters. Daenerys refused all comfort. She wore the same scorched jerkin she had fought in, the spear still at her side, and paced the queen's ballroom while Tyrion sketched a fragile order for the capital. Grain requisition from castles up the Roserad, half rations for soldier companies, quarter rations for sellswords of uncertain loyalty. Davos argued tariffs to keep smugglers from bleeding the city. Jorah measured stable capacity for horses that would soon trample newly sown gardens. Yet whenever the chatter rose too high, Daenerys silenced it by lifting her eyes. Amethyst jewels aglow with reflected torchlight, and at once the room remembered who commanded the dragon. Among those torches, Damian moved like the flicker of a knife. He attended every council, though he spoke rarely, content to watch alliances ferment. Some lords eyed him with the wariness one reserves for a trapdoor spider. Handsome, soft-voiced, quick to smile. He did not unfurl his Blackfyre banner. He did not need to. The rumor of that cloth billowed ahead of him in every hallway. When he stepped onto a parapet, archers on distant towers lowered their bows without conscious thought. Compulsion born of old stories and new uncertainty. He was the other dragon, the one who might replace the Silver Queen if fortune's wind shifted. On the 5th morning after Cersei's fall, the lords of the realm began to arrive. Some trudged across muddied fields with banners drooping in exhaustion. Others rode up the Blackwater in gilded barges, still scrubbed clean of ash by zealous servants. They came because Daenerys summoned them to witness justice. They came because ravens from Damian promised a voice in shaping the realm. They came because whoever stayed away might find their lands granted to a neighbor bold enough to kneel in person. Lord Edmure Tully rode through the mud gate at dawn atop a borrowed courser, trout banner furled tight. He bowed awkwardly to both claimants on the great sept's wide stairs, though the sept itself lay cracked, its statues toppled. Lady Asha Greyjoy, hair cut short and face framed with salt-sweetened braids, arrived next, claiming to speak for the Iron Islands since no one knew if Uncle Euron yet lived. She smirked at Damien's courtesy and winked at Daenerys when no one looked. From the north came Lady Sansa, cloaked in snow-white wool, escorted by an honor guard of tall gray-cloaked soldiers who refused drink from any pitcher they did not pour. From the Reach rode Garland Tyrell with half a dozen knights of the summer rain, claiming stewardship while his cousin Willis bartered grain to keep half the countryside from famine. When the Vale's delegation appeared, Sir Lyn Corbray bearing the boy Lord Robert Arryn's writ, Damian greeted them with warm memories of long exile among Vale's spymasters, praising Lady Lysa's ancient hospitality. Tears sprang unbidden to Sir Lyn's eyes. Damian quietly honored Corbray Steele's storied service at the Redgrass Field, and by nightfall half the Vale men were arguing in taverns that perhaps a Blackfyre crown could mend old Vale grievances still rankling since Robert's rebellion. The Dornish arrived last. Princess Arianne stepped from her sandal boat clad in crimson samite that shimmered like fresh blood. The city's women gasped to see her stand before Daenerys and remove the double spiral of golden hairpins that held her dark coils. She offered them to the queen. "In Dorne one crowns with water or with fire," she said. "My father chose water when he named me heir." I choose fire now, beside a sister queen. Then she turned, driving a single pin into Damien's breastplate, between two rings of mail. The gesture shocked the gathered crowd. Sign of respect in the Dornish style, a prick of blood to seal an alliance. Damien smiled thinly and left the pin where it stuck, ruby bead glistening. That evening, 1,000 candles ringed the dragon pit ruins where justice would be served. The great dome lay half collapsed, ribs of charred iron clawing skyward like a dead kraken's arms. In the center, a wooden platform had been hastily erected. 4 poles, a plank floor, and a single tall post where chains waited. Cersei walked to it draped in a rough brown habit once worn by penitents of the faith militant. The mountain preceded her, armored in plates that looked half melted. 12 unsullied flanked them, spears ready. A hush followed her progress, a hush of hatred, yes, but also of dread fascination, for the lioness still prowled behind her pale eyes. Every step jarred broken ribs. She would not lean on the mountain, and the mountain would not offer a hand. Daenerys waited before the platform wearing a simple black cloak. No crown. Drogon loomed behind her, perched on the skeleton arch of the pit's upper rim, eyes glowing coals in the dark. Rhaegal and Viserion lay coiled below, breath washing warm across the assembly whenever a cloud veiled the moon. Damien stood at Daenerys' left, cloak likewise plain, dark sister sheathed but front and center. Lords and knights formed a semicircle behind them, torches held by squires trembling from heat and nerves. The small folk filled the dragon pit's crumbling tiers, bakers with floured hands, poachers still smelling of peat smoke, brothel girls in gaudy bodices, orphan boys in rag jerkin. They had come because rumors said the dragons would show mercy tonight, and the city longed for mercy more than bread. Tyrion raised a scroll. "Hear now the charges," he called, voice cracking but steady as he read the litany. Regicide of King Robert, attempted regicide of King Tommen by manipulation of despair, destruction of the great sept, conspiracy to murder Lord Stark, murder of innocent smallfolk by wildfire, sundry treasons against crown and realm. Each crime punctured the hush, replaced by murmurs, some nodding along in righteous fury, some remembering kin lost on such days. When he finished, Daenerys looked to Cersei. "You may speak." Cersei's laugh rasped like parchment tearing. She lifted her chin despite the chain that bound her wrists. "I see dragons feasting on ashes," she said. "I see a bastard kinglet clutching at my rightful city. Treason, they cry. But how many of you bent knee to the usurper Baratheon when my prince was murdered? How many fat cats here spat cheers when Ned Stark died? Treason is merely now rather than then. Call my sins monstrous, but you licked the blood from my claws as eagerly as any cub." Her gaze swept the small folk. "Who built my wildfire? Who sold me the lime and timber to raise my scorpions? Who halfway hoped to see dragons burn so you could loot the bones?" Silence thickened, accusation heavy, on every shoulder. Then Damien stepped forward. "Your Grace," he said, "bow respectful. Speak all you will of shared guilt. Yet a queen is sworn to suffer the burden for those beneath. When a mother burns her own children, she cannot hide behind the butcher who sold her the cleaver." Cersei's lip curled. "And who are you to lecture mothers? You'd sit on a throne forged of bastard steel, proclaiming yourself heir from the wrong side of the blanket." "No, I am what the realm has made me," Damien replied, "and what I will make of it." He turned to the assembly. "Hear me now, people of Westeros. The realm has no need of ritual but of repair. A crown triumphant atop a heap of corpses is no victory." He paused, letting the torches sputter. "I stand here as witness that Daenerys Stormborn did not set this city aflame. She spared where she could. I pledge my sword that justice shall not become vengeance." "Dam Durante." He looked to Daenerys, an unspoken question. "Now?" She dipped her head, a breath of consent. Grey worms signaled. 4 unsullied closed in, unlocked Cersei's wrists, bound them behind the stake. The mountain stirred, but Grey Worm placed a hand to his chest. The monstrous knight glared through helmet slits, yet he stepped back. Not submission, obedience to absolute command. Tyrion produced a scroll sealed with dragon wax. "Sentence is life imprisonment," he announced. Gasps rippled outward. "No pyre? No sword stroke?" Tyrion continued. "Cersei of House Lannister is to be confined to the silent wing of the Red Keep until death claims her." Murmurs rose, outrage and surprise. "Why spare her?" a voice shouted from the commons. "She burned us." Daenerys stepped forward, cloak snapping. "I will not drown this new dawn in blood," she declared. "Let her live to remember every child she cost this city. Let her live to witness a realm rebuilt without her cruelty. She will see the Iron Throne melted and recast to seat a better order." She let the words hang, ambiguous on purpose. The murmurers fell away, sobriety sank in. Vengeance denied could feel heavier than chains. Yet some faces in the tears softened. Parents relieved their sons would not have to march to war seeking yet more heads. Tyrion's voice dropped to formality. "So judged," he said. "Let it be done." 4 Unsullied lifted the stake on a cradle of poles and bore Cersei away. Her eyes did not leave Daenerys until the archway swallowed her. Then the bells rang again, but softer. 3 measured notes, not triumph nor warning. The realm held its breath. Daemon exhaled. He turned to Daenerys. "You have laid the cornerstone," he said. "Now we build." In the fortnight that followed, camp sprawled into districts as soldiers helped clear rubble and shore up cracked walls. Water carriers formed chains from the river, hauling buckets to wash soot from stone. The crumbled ships of Euron's fleet were dragged ashore, sawed into planking to mend bridges. Ragged lines of small folk queued at soup kettles, where once mummers played. Gold cloaks who surrendered were set to patrol ruined wards under Unsullied oversight, pairing a city guard with a slave soldier to watch each other. Daenerys walked those lines daily, accepting petitions. Sometimes she rode Drogon overhead so all might see her guardianship. Other times she walked with only Missandei and a single Unsullied for escort. Sleeves rolled, lifting debris with her own hands. The small folk whispered of the Silver Queen who touched plague sores without flinching, who ordered granaries unlocked though her quartermasters warned supplies would run thin before winter's end. At night she dreamed of Valyria, dreams of crumbling towers above rivers of molten gold, and woke in cold sweat. Daemon spent his hours forging kinship with lords. He drank with Garland Tyrell, praising the late Margaery's courage. He played Savas with Sansa Stark, losing gracefully while complimenting her strategy of cutting the boards center early. He sparred with Asha under torchlight until first blood, both laughing at bruised ribs. He attended Arianne's dusk gatherings, discussing Dornish water rights. And he listened, always listening, to under-captains and bakers and cut-purses, storing grievances like arrows slain by names. One evening, as candles guttered in the small council chamber, Tyrion confronted them both. "The realm bleeds coin," he said. "We must choose a minting authority, or the merchants will create their own." He smacked 2 tokens on the table, a silver stag bearing Baratheon's crowned antlers, and a copper mark stamped with a 3-headed dragon, Aegon's coin restruck by Viserys during his last desperate year in exile. "Blackfyre silver stands ready," Daemon offered, producing a slim purse. Daenerys pulled free 2 gold discs bearing stars and a horse's head. "Marry's Aurelians," she said. "Pure measure, no alloy. My freedfolk trust them." Tyrion stared at the tokens. 2 currencies divide a realm. We must strike new die, symbol to bind both factions. Daemon hesitated. "What?" "Sigil." Tyrion pushed back hair gone white at the temples. "Something neither black nor silver dragon. Something that speaks not of bloodline but of the realm itself." Daenerys traced a finger across the table's scarred oak. "The 7-pointed star?" she asked, half mocking. "The faith burned with the sept. You freed the Unsullied," Daemon murmured. "You freed Meereen's slaves. And you," he nodded to Tyrion, "once freed captives from Casterly dungeons with wit alone. Chains break, coin should remember." He produced a strip of parchment and sketched. 2 hands clasped, one bare, 1½ gauntlet, a shattered chain nestled between. Surrounding them, a ring of 12 tiny points forming a sunburst. Tyrion's brow lifted. Daenerys studied the drawing. "No dragon?" she asked. "If crown enough sits on broken links, dragons might become memory rather than master," he said. He did not glance at her but felt her scrutiny like heat. Tyrion exhaled. "A coin of unity," he said. Daenerys returned the sketch. "Strike it," she ordered. "Mint the silver from captured Lannister plate. Stamp the copper from the war machines we melted." And so the coin of unity was born. Clasped hands, shattered chain, sunburst rim. The first dies were cut in the cellars below the Guildhall of Alchemists. Heat that once brewed wildfire now forging hope. Damien oversaw the alloying. Daenerys tested each weight. When the first bag of 1,000 clinked into existence, they distributed them free to bakers and healers to pay workers rebuilding the lower wards. A copper link could buy bread for a day. 4 silvers purchased a tanner's cured hide. Soon taverns nailed them as lucky charms above their doors, and children played flip coin games in the gutters, chanting, "Unity, unity, choose for me." But coins could not feed all. Winter had crept south. Cold frosted the high meadows, withered grapevines along the Blackwater rush. Grain stores dwindled. Reports reached Council of Raiders near Maidenpool. Wearing ragged lion mantles, Lannister outriders turned bandit. North of Duskendale, a would-be lordling named Sir Martin Mormont gathered sellswards, claiming Cersei still ruled from secret. Worse, on the Iron Islands, Euron's cousin Victarion rallied what ships survived, swearing to avenge the silence. The realm shuddered, fragile as eggshell under winter wind. Daenerys called her captains. "We cannot wait for famine to breed revolt," she said. "We ride east, gather harvest from fertile valleys at the headwaters of the Blackwater, and we sail south to open Old Town's granaries by diplomacy or flame." Damien interjected. "If you lead dragons south, rumor will paint you tyrant. Let me go instead. I will take the Riverlands, show them a sword can reap harvest without burning fields. You negotiate grain from Old Town, in person, queen to archmaester. The Citadel's word weighs heavier than any bannerman's." Tyrion nodded. "Split strength, multiply goodwill. 2 dragons in 2 places, rather than 1 demon in the sky." Daenerys weighed them. "Eagle and Viserion fly with my host to Old Town," she decided. "Drogon remains over King's Landing. Any who threaten the city will see his shadow first." She looked to Damien. "Take half the Unsullied and your sellswards. Garland Tyrell accompanies you. He knows every grain barn between Bitterbridge and River Run." They clasped wrists to seal the pact. But when Damien bowed to leave, she detained him with a touch. "Remember," she said softly so only he heard, "Unity coin bears no dragon, but you and I still carry wings. Do not let lords set you against me." He bent to whisper back, "Nor let your counselors fear you for loving them. We lead together, or the realm will sunder." Now, that night, he rode from the city, banners of plain black fluttering beside silver unsullied spears. Garland rode beside him, quoting harvest tallies. Garcion flowers scouted ahead, sabers twin shadows. Small folk watched from hedges as the column passed, some waving timidly, others clutching toddlers who pointed and asked, "Is that the good dragon prince?" Daenerys departed 3 days later. She took the Roserad south with an escort of Dothraki outriders, the gilded dawn spear of Dorne, and 100 wagons of empty barrels to return laden with grain. Tyrion accompanied, though his limp worsened each mile. He rode a sturdy mule and cursed at potholes in 5 tongues. Missandei traveled in her train, keeping scrolls of tariffs and promises. In the sky, Rhaegal and Viserion weaved lazy curves, bright as verdant banners above the gray. None challenged their passage. With both claimants now on the road, King's Landing seemed to hold its breath again. Drogon nested atop the Red Keep like a living rampart. The mountain, bereft of purpose, paced silent halls beneath him, guarding a queen who stared at broken windows, painted by dawns she no longer ruled. Grey Worm oversaw city guard rotations, but his calm facade hid unease. Messages of unrest from the Crownlands multiplied. Refugees poured through the King's Gate telling of a sellsword calling himself Lion's Wrath, murdering Targaryen sympathizers. Supplies of tin for new coin ran low. Smiths hammered temple bells into crude sheets for minting. One afternoon, Sansa requested audience with Grey Worm. She came cloaked in white furs despite the southern heat. "Commander," she said, "my ravens from Winterfell bring ill tidings. White Harbor's docks lie silent. A silence of the north, the fishermen call it. Whole crews missing, no sign of storm. Could be Ironborn, could be worse. My people clamor for the Stark banner to rise in defense. I ask permission to return north with my guard." Grey Worm considered. "The Queen wished you safe behind city walls until Council chooses a throne." Sansa's spine straightened like a drawn bow. "She is not on that throne yet." He bowed slightly, a concession without consent. She softened. "Tell her I will not pledge blades to any claim until my people are secured against this silence," she said. "The North has bled too often for southern crowns." Grey Worm nodded. "Go then. Take coin of unity for wage. Pay your ferrymen double. They fear seas haunted." He handed her a heavy pouch. She accepted with measured gratitude, turned, and left through archways still scarred by dragonfire. That same night, a shadow cut the moonlit courtyard. Tall, one-armed, golden-haired, Jaime Lannister limped toward the dungeons beneath Maegor's holdfast. He had hidden among refugees, surrendering quietly when unsullied patrols cornered him near the Sept's blackened shell. Now, he demanded to see Cersei. The mountain stood sentinel. Grey Worm granted the meeting. Downstone steps slick with algae. Jaime descended, echo of his boots accompanied by the crunch of rubble. Torches guttered. Beyond rusted bars, Cersei lay on a straw mat, habit torn, hair grown wild. She looked up, eyes flashing green even in gloom. "Lioness," Jaime whispered. She laughed, hollow. "Did you come to carve my tombstone with that pretty hand you no longer have?" He stepped to the bars. "I came to say goodbye." He removed a small vial from inside his cloak. Pale liquid swirling. Essence of nightshade. Painless. Drink and dream of Tommen. She stared, incredulous. "You would kill me." "Spare you." His voice broke. "They will keep you down here until rot kills you slower than wildfire. Dream now of the children, and let me remember you laughing on the Tower of the Hands balcony, wind in your hair." She reached through the bars, fingers trembling. He placed the vial in her grasp. But when his flesh met hers, she clenched like a trap, yanked him forward, smashed his face into iron bars. Blood spurted. He reeled. The vial shattered, poison-soaking straw dodged cut. She lunged, arms snaking, seized his throat between the bars, nails gouging. "You will not pity me," she hissed. "You will not grant me mercy I never asked for." He choked, struggling. Footsteps thundered. Grey Worm wrenched her arms away. Jaime sagged, gasping. Grey Worm locked the cell, dragging Jaime back to the stairs. Cersei watched, unblinking, as straw smoldered where poison spilled, nightshade fumes mingling with stale air. She inhaled deeply, eyelids fluttering. Soft smile lifted cracked lips. As the cell door slammed, she lay upon the mat and whispered names no one heard. 2 days later she was found dead, lips black, eyes glass clear. The city awoke to the news in stunned hush. Small folk left wilted roses, red and white, at the gates, uncertain what respect to pay a monster slain by her own pride. Jaime disappeared from his sickbed. Some claimed he fled into the night on a borrowed piebald horse, headed north to seek a sister's forgiveness in death. Others swore they saw him slip into the Blackwater and never surface. When Daenerys received the raven at Old Town's Honeywine Quay, she closed her eyes. The Maester's aromatic gardens buzzed with bees, the air sweet with orange blossom. Victims died in King's Landing while Old Town's lords argued tariffs. She had just concluded a treaty. Grain for copper unity, Maesters for dragonfire research, when the parchment arrived. She read Tyrion's cramped, sorrowful account. Then she climbed Viserion saddle and flew above the towering Hightower, where gulls wheeled over the harbor. For an hour she circled, letting grief burn into resolve. When she landed, Tyrion approached gingerly. "Her death relieves many fears," he ventured. "It may also stir fresh ones." that we orchestrated her suicide. She stared at the high tower's pale spire. Do we seize every rumor and shape it, or let truth stand bare? He adjusted his cloak. Truth bare can freeze hearts, but clothe it in reason and hope. It might warm them. She nodded. Draft a proclamation. Cersei Lannister died by her own hand, refusing mercy granted. The realm will remember that cruelty devours itself. Tyrion bowed, turning to Quills. In Riverland's villages, ravens brought tidings of Cersei's death and Damien's approach. Garician flowers rode ahead to treat with petty lord. Some yielded barns of oats and barley in exchange for unity coin and promises of seat on a future council. Others resisted, hearing whispers that Damien meant to seize Riverrun's stronghold. Skirmishes erupted. Blackfyre pikes clashed with outlaw levies along weirs and hedges. Each victory, Damien ordered captured foes fed and released with ransom paid in coin of unity. Word spread that the black-cloaked prince measured victory not in skulls but in seeds saved. Peasant women began tossing bundles of rye before the horses' hooves, a blessing once reserved for wandering septas. By the time he reached the fords of the Red Fork, his army had swelled. Frey cousins seeking absolution, Bracken patrols eager to wound Blackwoods, even sellsword companies from the Vale, lured by rumor of fair pay under honest command. Garland Tyrell worried about supply. Damien answered by arranging seed loans from one village to another, scribbling tallies that promised repayment after harvest. Garasian joked that the prince doled out coin faster than copper could be smelted. Damien only smiled. Let the realm owe me bread, not blood, he said. Winter, however, would not be bribed. Cold fog hugged riverbanks at dawn, and the first snow, wet and heavy, blanketed mezzanines of Harrenhal's ruins. Ravens informed him that Victarion's fleet had raided the arbor, carrying off casks of summer wine and young girls alike. He scowled, knuckles whitening on Dark Sister's hilt. Blackfyre steel thirsts, Garatian said quietly. No, Damien answered. It hungers. Hunger can be fed. He sent riders to Pike offering parley. Offer grain and gold for peace. Victarion's reply came swift on an arrow that thudded into his map table, a finger wearing a Dornish ring. Rage flared, but he closed his eyes. Patience, he whispered. In Old Town, Daenerys stood before the assembled conclave of maesters. She addressed them without crown, flanked by Rhaegal perched on a rampart high above. I ask only that knowledge serve the many, she said. Send medics north and scribes east. Translate treatises on crop rotation for villages whose maesters were slain. Teach wound binding to midwives. You claim the candle of civilization. Let its wax drip on every child. Many nodded. Some frowned. Maester Walgrave grumbled old oaths about dragons eating libraries. Yet Archmaester Eustace locked his chain of copper and gold, proclaiming the Citadel's support for the Unity Mint and promising 20 wagons of barley per fortnight to King's Landing. As she departed, the novice pate pressed a copper link into her palm. For memory, he said shyly. She tucked it in her sleeve beside Ariana's golden hairpin, their weight reminding her of promises. South of the High Tower, though, plots brewed. Lord Leighton's younger son Gilbert had sworn fealty by day. By night he penned letters to Volantis, inviting sell sales to retake the arbor and restore grape tithes. In a cellar tavern, 7-Point Star zealots plotted to stab the Dragon Queen on the bridge at Honeywine. Missandei's whisper network discovered the scheme. Unsullied blades ended it before dawn. But rumors of heresy spread. The faith militant, though headless, still wielded hidden daggers. Daenerys realized her dragon's presence cowed dissent in Old Town, but absence would embolden it. She must return to King's Landing before rowdy tongues turned to torches. They set sail upriver, faster than the road, 3 swift galleys laden with grain. Behind them, Rhaegal and Viserion soared low, stirring swans from reeds. Tyrion drafted messages to Damien, urging a rendezvous at Maidenpool before full winter sealed passes. Far north, Sansa reached White Harbor to discover the port bustling with silent tension. Ships indeed gone, but not by ironborn raiders, by empty crews. Sailors whispered of black-hulled ghosts crewed by women who sang hymns to the drowned god. On the night of the new moon, A ship called Widow's Kiss drifted into the harbor unmanned, blood on her rails. The next morning, fishermen found nets torn like lace. Sansa closed the harbor gates, ordered watchfires every 100 yards. The North, she concluded, faced a new terror, one she must name before it bled into the war of dragons to the south. When her raven reached King's Landing, Grey Worm stood upon the city walls reading her words. Drogon exhaled behind him, heat washing his back. He looked at the sky where snowflakes drifted, melting in the dragon's breath. "Winter and ghosts," he muttered. "And still we rebuild." Inside, masons hammered molten lead into cracks in the throne room's tall windows. The Iron Throne remained in place, a twisted black monument. Grey Worm had ordered scaffolds erected to melt half the blades. But work slowed. Poets protested the destruction of history. Smiths feared dragon fire too near wooden planks. Some claimed the throne itself was magic, that whoever tried to cut it would suffer cuts themselves. Grey Worm scoffed, yet blood stained his forearm from a wayward shard the day he tore off a rusted blade. He ordered the room sealed. Perhaps the Queen should decide its fate herself. Damien's army encamped at Maidenpool as instructed. Snow still fell, but the harbor remained ice-free. He waited 3 days. 4. No sails from the south. Instead, a battered ship, flying Taroshi colors, limped in, hull peppered with quarrels. The captain brought dire news. Volantene galleys 36 strong sailed for Blackwater Bay, hired by unknown masters to clean the choke of dragons from Westeros. Damien's stomach clenched. If those galleys blockaded the mouth, Daenerys' grain convoy would be trapped upriver, and King's Landing would starve. He convened council in a smoke-filled stable. "We march at dawn, forced march," he said. "Garland, strip cavalry to light saddles. They ride ahead to build defenses on the cliffs. Garatian, ready every archer. We hold the bluffs above the Blackwater mouth until dragons arrive." A silver stallion whickered. Damien stroked its neck. "Unity's first test," he whispered. 2 nights of grueling travel brought them to the headland above the Blackwater rush. Snow swirled around torchlit spades as men dug entrenchments overlooking the sea. Garland Tyrell directed engineers to place ballista frames they captured from Lannister depots. With no iron limbs, they repurposed shipmasts, rigged thick hemp rope soaked in wax. Crude, but a quarrel from such heights could pierce even a Volantene hull. On the 3rd dawn, sails darkened the horizon. Red and black tigers of Volantis, cat's eyes flaring on gold backgrounds. 50, not 30, perhaps more behind. Damien's breath misted as he counted. His men murmured. Garatian unsheathed a curved saber. "We cannot stop that," he said. "We can stall," Damien replied. He turned to a drummer boy shivering under furs. "Beat hearts of iron," he ordered. The boy struck his drum. Boom, boom, and the cliff line bristled. Ragged archers knocked arrows lit in pitch. Sellsword pikemen steadied on the slope where snow had begun to crust. Volantene galleys formed a crescent. Firepots arced from their decks, trailing sparks. Some crashed against cliff face, showering men with burning oil. Screams split the sky. Damien rode the line, shouting courage, stamping out flames with cloak and boot. Above, Drogon was absent, perched still in the capital. The horizon glimmered white, dragonless. Catapults gnarled from felled oaks, hurled stone shot. One bombarded a trireme's mast. It splintered, rigging collapsing in canvas tangle. Cheers erupted. Then a second Volantene ship angled oars coordinate, launching grapnels to scale the steep cliff path. Tigers roared, chainmail shining. Archers fired, grapnels fell, new ones flew. Snow melted under flame. Damien spied movement inland. A dust plume. Garland's cavalry returning from foraging? No, too many. He squinted. Bronze helmets glinted. Dothraki? No, horns like elk pangs. Unsullied? Scale not plate. Suddenly trumpets blared. A familiar Tyrol cadence. And beyond, the roar of wings. Daenerys descended through broken cloud riding Rhaegal. Viserion a breath behind. Tyrion clinging to a harness. Green and gold flame vomited downward. Valentina decks erupted in twin conflagrations. Sailors diving overboard where cold sea hissed. Dragons banked, swooped again, shredding masts. The crescent shattered. Some galleys turned, oars frantic. On the clifftop, Garland's horn sounded. His cavalry thundered in to reinforce. Amid the din, Damian raised Dark Sister. "Unity!" he cried. Soldiers took up the shout, ragged but fierce. When last Valentine's standard dipped beneath the horizon, only smoking wrecks remained. Dragons landed on the bluff, bodies steaming in snow. Daenerys dismounted, boots crunching frost, face flushed. "You flew swift," Damian said, panting. "I smelled smoke on the honey wine," she answered, eyes bright. "Tyrion guessed Volantis would chase our grain." She turned to survey the wreckage. "You held them." "We held them," he corrected. He offered her a battered waterskin. She drank, passed it back. Behind them, soldiers cheered, some weeping relief. Snowflakes fluttered onto dragon scales, melting instantly. That night, they camped together for the first time since parting. A great bonfire burned high against the winter dark. Soldiers from unsullied ranks exchanged bread with Golden Company men. Dothraki traded braids for Tyrell rosepins. Tyrion passed among them, filling cups from a cask of Arbor gold, found drifting ashore, one of Victarion's spoils reclaimed by tide. Near midnight, Damian and Daenerys walked the bluff's edge. Below, sea glass glinted, wreckage bobbing. Above, stars pricked black velvet. They spoke little, sharing silence. Finally she said, "The realm sees our unity, but lords will ask soon for crown and council." He nodded. "A moot of lords and commons both, 200 seats, half noble, half freeholder. We stand before them, pledged to abide their verdict." "And if they choose neither?" she asked. "They must choose someone," he said, "or lose dragon protection." She studied the waves. "Will you bow if they choose me?" He met her gaze. "Will you bow if they choose me?" She did not flinch. Snowflakes gathered on her eyelashes, molten in the heat of her gaze. After a breath, they both smiled. Sudden, shared. "Then let them decide," she said. They clasped hands, fingers chapped from wind, and there upon the windswept cliff they pressed palm to palm. No sword hilts, no dragon reins, only flesh to flesh. Tenuous bridge between past and future. Below, the tide rolled heavy against shoals strewn with broken tiger banners. Above, unity coins chimed in purses as soldiers laughed round fires. The realm lay wounded yet beating, like those drums still echoing under the frozen stars. And somewhere north across snow-buried forests, Sansa Stark lifted a torch on White Harbor's wall, peering into black waves that whispered of ghosts yet to come. The Dragon Prince and the Dragon Queen did not see that distant flame, but they felt a tremor in the night wind, a warning that winter's harshest trials had only begun, and that fire alone could not ward shadows rising from salt and snow. They tightened their clasp, turned toward the south where King's Landing waited, and walked back through falling snow to share one small warmth kindled between two dragons of different blood, yet common breath.